webinar on coping with the COVID-19 crisis. I'm Michael Tunnecliffe, and my co-presenter tonight is Kerryn Ashford-Hatherly. First of all, I'd like to give you a bit of an overview of what we're covering in this webinar. We're going to be talking about the reality of the situation, what it means for me, you, and everybody else. We're going to talk about why a lot of people are feeling very anxious. We're seeing it in our clinical practice. Lots of people ringing up, lots of people being really concerned about what's going on. We want to give you some strategies to manage stress and worry. And finally, we want to look at ways to sustain your well-being, what we call a well-being plan, and look after yourself in a difficult time. These coping strategies are going to be very, very important over the months to come. The current situation, everyone, this is a crisis, and no one in our lifetime has experienced the lifestyle changes we're going through now. In my life, I know my parents lived through the Depression, but I was born after the war, so I didn't go through any of the sorts of deprivations and shortages and restrictions that we have right now. And people are reacting to this. And it's quite normal and understandable that people are reacting to it. This is indicated by a few things. The first one is hypervigilance to infection contact. You can't buy hand sanitizer anywhere, and of course people are buying up PPE, masks and gloves, and people are highly vigilant about, most people rather, are highly vigilant about any sort of infection contact. We have constant media reporting. Just before coming onto this webinar, I checked out one of the online websites, news websites, and every item was about the COVID-19. So the media is in our face all the time with this. It's a major topic of conversation with your family, your friends, whoever you're talking to. The topic comes up and everybody's got an opinion on it. And we're also seeing reported behaviours such as hoarding, and a strong reaction to anybody that may pose a risk. Kerryn recently had an example of this.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. Yes, as Michael said, through our clinical practice, we're recognising that people are affected in all various ways, and due to different personal reasons. Some people have vulnerable people in their life that they're very concerned about. Some people actually are immune compromised or having medical health issues that put them higher at risk. And generally, there's just people who are worried about the greater social network and protecting ourselves and our community. Interestingly, through the contact I've had with key people through our clinical practice and also my colleagues, I've come across a couple of people that have tested positive through the COVID-19. They're in self-isolation, and I've been doing online video counselling as support for them. As you're aware, the government has provided bulk billing Medicare for people who have been tested positive for COVID-19, which is important because from the couple of people that I've been working with, it appears that on both the cases that I have been engaged with these people, the contact with the virus is unknown. So they did not meet the normal criteria to even expect that they would be tested positive. They did the right thing when they were feeling some of the symptoms, went and got tested, and of course were put into isolation, and everyone that they had been in contact with in the past 48 hours also was contacted and went into isolation. So they followed through with all the procedures the moment that they thought that they were exhibiting or feeling symptoms. What has happened for both of them as a consequence of this, and these two people are completely unrelated, is that they have been getting through their support network quite a lot of negative messages, negative text messages. They've been getting information sent to them through emails, online, through Facebook and other social media, by people who are actually meant to support them at this time. And some of the people that had to go into isolation because they were in contact with that person have also been quite negative. This has been really difficult, and what we're seeing is that from the experience I've had supporting these people during this time, it is really traumatic for them. They didn't do anything wrong. In fact, they followed all the procedure. They didn't meet the guidelines that would have put them at risk in any way, and now they're finding that they are getting a negative response from people who are meant to support them. So I think that we need to be careful about how we judge people and the assumptions that we make about people at this point in time. Those who are at risk are absolutely vulnerable. Those who are positive are not just vulnerable, obviously, from a physical perspective, but mental health-wise, they are at risk. And the last thing we need is to start judging and criticising others at this point in time. Just to go on and to put into context what a lot of people are experiencing. At this point in time, it is quite normal to be experiencing anxiety and fear and like Michael said, going through all those behaviours that we've identified previously. What actually happens is that this is an incident that none of us have experienced before. Some of the people I've been speaking to through my clinical practice have actually likened it to their own experience of coming from overseas, where they have been in through their lifetime through wars within the country that they grew up in, and they are seeing this as something similar, albeit different, but similar experience. What happens when we go through something that we call a critical incident or a traumatic event is that because we don't have an understanding of it in our basic philosophy, it can be difficult to incorporate into our processes, our normality. And so we keep searching for information, and this is what's led to a lot of misinformation, is that people just want to understand. They want to understand how it's come to this. They want to know that people with the knowledge are doing all they can to protect us. Our governments are doing what they can to protect us. So it's a very unstable time. And because if we don't have a philosophy around understanding incidents like this, then we're going to find it very difficult at this point to incorporate it. So our fear and anxiety is going to be quite high, and we're going to be sensitive to what's going on around us. So we will be sensitive. For those people who are experiencing this, you'll be hypersensitive to other information, to how people are coping, to hearing that someone has been tested positive. And it's important to keep that in mind because it takes a while for us to assimilate this information. There needs to be a period of time where we start to feel that we gain some sense of understanding before we can incorporate this into what a lot of you're hearing now is the new norm, that we are vulnerable. And there's some interesting theories around this. There's Irving Yalom, who's a psychotherapist, an American psychotherapist, talks about the four givens in existential therapy. And so some of that for us, which is things about freedom, what freedom means, and a lot of us are being challenged by freedom at the moment. We're not having free access to the world that we used to have free access to. So that is giving us a frightening experience of society. The other given that Irving Yalom talks about is death. This is inevitable for some people. Well, it's inevitable for all of us. But at this point in time, this is what we're faced with, that many people are dying, and that causes fear. So it's a death anxiety. The other given that Irving Yalom talks about in terms of existentialism is the meaning of life. So some of us are working out, well, what is my purpose? What is my priority here? And we're being challenged with that. So some of us are making really, really good decisions because now priorities are important. What is priority? Well, my priority is my family. It's the people I care about. It's who I love. Therefore, my decisions I make will be based on that. And of course, the fourth given is isolation. So we are absolutely going through an existential crisis right now. As some of us face isolation, some people I've heard say, hey, I really love isolation. This is working well for me. Other people are more wanting to be in community. They're more people driven. So this is a challenge for them. And the other theory that fits with what we're experiencing here that sits outside of the norm is what we call terror management theory and mortality salience, where suddenly we realise that our mortality is salient, that things that we can't see that are around us have an impact on our life to the point where our mortality becomes something that we don't take for granted. Michael, did you want to add any more to that?
No, I think that's a really good point because a lot of people aren't used to having isolation. We tend to have our network that we generally mix within, and suddenly to find that you've got to work in an isolated situation or you're home isolated from your work. We've had a lot of people who've lost their employment. They're talking about over 1 million people already have lost their employment. And for them, their whole world's been turned upside down because it happened very rapidly. It wasn't like someone had 4 weeks' notice. It probably happened the same day. So that's caused a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety for people. So what we need to understand is that there are reactions to anxiety. Everybody gets anxious at some time about something, and we react to that anxiety. And the reaction isn't standardized. It is different because we're all different people. And it's governed by our personality, it's governed by our experience, it's governed by the way we think. Some people have feelings of helplessness. They feel fearful and generally uneasy about everything. A lot of people just feel in danger constantly. I was quite surprised when I saw people just in the street recently going for a walk wearing face masks. And I thought, this is not the appropriate use, but they're probably trying to do things that make them feel safe. Individuals will have mood swings. Sometimes you'll feel okay, but then something will happen or someone will say something or there's a news item which changes the mood. People are constantly on guard. It's called vigilance. And a lot of people become highly vigilant about what's happening around them in their community and in their society. Some people ruminate. They can't stop thinking. And the whole, I suppose, scenario of what's going on currently is going over and over in their mind all the time. There are also some people who will naturally go to worst case scenario. They'll start to think about what's the worst thing could happen. And that can be very frightening for them, especially when they think about not just themselves, but their family members. And this can lead to behaviours, irritability, avoidant behaviours. Some people go very quiet and don't want to communicate. Other people will over-communicate and try to over-control the situation and over-control what's happening in their family. And that also can be a difficult scenario for people to try and cope with.
It's important to take action at this point in time because staying in that place doesn't do us well. What it does is it leads us to chronic mental health issues, and we want to come out of this being stronger. Some useful actions to take is validate how you are feeling and reflect on the positive actions that you're taking. We can't deny what we're feeling and we can't run away from it. We need to acknowledge it. And we also need to acknowledge that other people are going to be reactive and to give a little bit of mental space. Because if you're going out to put the rubbish out and your next door neighbour doesn't wave to you as they normally do, or there's just a sort of a grunt, or people have got so much more on their mind at the moment. So be aware that everyone's struggling, everyone is in a different space, and we're all trying to deal with it the best way that we can. Test your concerns about reality. Don't look at the media. If you need to look for information, please use, the websites that are going to give you the factual information. World Health Organization, the Australian government website, or the state government website of your state. Stick to the facts here. There is a lot of information being put around, and it's being branded as being coming from a doctor in ER who's on the front line, who's working with these people. We do not have any evidence to say that this is valid information. Some people are trying to get a positive word out there by using this, and it's important, whatever the information is, just stick to the facts that you have from those websites that you know are the ones that are valid, not the media. Worry doesn't keep you safe. We are worrying. We can't not worry about what this means, what the future means, and financially for a lot of people what this means. However, we need to, at certain points in time, suspend ourselves and not get caught up in it. If you notice yourself sitting down and worrying, get up, do something, move outside. The sun is still shining, the air is still fresh. We're lucky we live in a country that we have a beautiful outdoors area. We've got space. We've got space to walk the streets. We're not crowded. We still have this available to us. So even if you just walk out, go to the end of your driveway and come back, take a deep breath. Look for things that are positive. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed and sit inside in the four walls. They get smaller the longer you sit inside. Ration your consumption of social media. Some people have got positive influences on social media, and they're joining together to do Netflix online parties. That's great. You can use these to keep that network, to keep that connection with people. If you start to see that your news feed on some of these social medias gets overwhelmed with some negative stuff, either stop following those people or just don't look at it. Give yourself a little bit of a breather. Put the phone away for a bit. Again, go outside, take a walk. Engage in something else that is going to nourish you. Work on accepting the anxiety. This is going to be a roller coaster. So our anxiety is going to be there for a while. And whenever there's uncertainty, there's anxiety. So it's an ambiguous time. We're going to look to try and get control. That's what we do when we feel uncertain and anxious. Bring back to what you can control. All I can control right now is myself and my micro environment. What can I do in here that can just assist me in this moment to cope better? And it might be things that you've been wanting to do for a while. Start doing them. Make a schedule. Right, today, this is what I want to achieve. Just pick 3 things, even if they're small things, that you want to achieve today, that you feel that you can gain a sense of completion with. Completion gives us a sense of control. If I decide that I wanted to start creating a veggie garden today, and my first step was just prepare the soil. All I got to do today is prepare that soil. At least then I feel I've achieved something, I've accomplished something, and that gives me a sense of control over my microenvironment. And of course, be grateful for what's going well. I think out of all of this, I've heard a lot of negatives. I've seen people behave in ways that I have to say are appalling. And we really need to be supporting each other at this time, not criticising and judging each other. What I've also seen is I've seen incredible moments of kindness and compassion. I know in the environment where I live, our city council has put out to every single house in our suburb a note to say, if you need support, let us know. Fill out this form. Tell us who you are, what support you need. On the other side of that is if you are a household or a person who can give support, let us know and we will tell you what we need you to do. And when I saw that, I thought this is what we need to be doing as a community. We need to be aware of who are our vulnerable people. Do you know someone who lives alone? Do you know someone who's vulnerable? Do you know someone who can't be connected to their family right now? Send them a text, send them an email, call them on the phone. Maybe just go to their door, drop off some food, some toilet roll, drop off some flowers, whatever. Knock on the door. Let them know there's something there for them. Call them, ask them to come out if it's a neighbour, wave to them from the end of the driveway. Just let them know that someone else out there cares. You know, this is what we can do well. Be grateful also for what you have. We're a very lucky country. We may not be able to do all the free things that normally we do, but at this point in time, if we stay within the guidelines that the government has given us, we can go through this together and we can become stronger. We have to start looking at the positives that this is showing us as a community. Michael?
Yes, some good points, Kerryn. And I think to put that into action, it would be really good to have what I often call a well-being plan. And a well-being plan is about what you're going to do for yourself. I really like the idea of that things to do list. Write down just one or two things, three things maybe you want to achieve today. I think it's really essential that if you're at home, if you're in isolation, if you can't go to the gym and things you used to do normally, schedule a daily physical exercise time. I decided to do this, so I looked up on YouTube 10, 15-minute exercise routines and got inundated with the number of really good routines there are. So I've started that for myself, put a little routine in place so that I try and do 15 or so minutes every day, as well as a walk of some kind of exercise in my office. I think it's really important to arrange a daily check-in with family, friends, and even your peers that you work with. Just checking how they're going, touching base. It doesn't even have to be in a voice message. It can simply be a text message. What are your distractors? The things that take your concerns away, the things that you can focus on, hobbies or interests. I think they're really, really important that you go back to looking at those and say, can I do something constructive? Can I do something positive today? Have a positive, motivating book to read. This is not the time to start reading negative books, which are perhaps a little bit depressing. Look at what you've got in your library. Look at what you can get down online, download online. Books which are positive and motivating. Take on an activity that's a new experience, something you haven't done before. It could be something like meditation, relaxation exercises. You haven't done those before, perhaps, so what you can do is take them on as an activity that you're going to try out and experience. At this time when people are feeling anxious, your sleep routines are very, very important. I know some of you I'm talking to right now have sat there at night, laid there at night with your head going round and round and round, just thinking about the situation, thinking about the future, concerned about your family, concerned about your children, concerned about your elderly parents or friends. I think it's really important you find ways that you can actually get a good night's sleep, and making sure you put a sleep routine in place. There's lots of guidelines for that on the internet, good sleep hygiene, and how to make sure that you actually get a good night's sleep is really important. To that end also, I think it's absolutely essential that you avoid excessive alcohol and prescription overuse, because they will interfere with your sleep. Everybody thinks that, oh, if I have a few drinks, I'll feel a bit drowsy, I'll feel a bit tired. What we do know is alcohol just before bed actually interferes with a good night's sleep. So that's another important thing to focus on. And finally, if you do find that you are feeling overwhelmed, that anxiety is something that's been present with you for a while, and you do feel you need to talk to someone, please seek out some professional help. There's a lot of counselling available now. In fact, you can attend counselling, as Kerryn said, online, and it's bulk billed. And this is a good way to actually talk through some of those anxieties, things that may have been triggered for you in the current environment, and try to help yourself to work through those. So think about your wellbeing plan, think about what you need to put in place and you need to do, and actually start to work towards putting that plan towards being something effective in your personal coping.
I think also, just to add to the professionals seeking out professional advice, as well as obviously mental health, there are counsellors and psychologists out there that can provide the phone and also online video counselling. There are a certain amount of psychologists who are still doing face-to-face. Psychology is seen as an essential service. So if you really feel you need to get out from self-isolation for a bit and you can get yourself to an office, we are adhering strictly to the government guidelines in terms of making sure our environments have been sanitised, that there is the 1.5 distancing. So that is an option that's a very controlled environment for you if you choose. I'd also like to say at that point, I know that a lot of people are going through some incredibly difficult financial time right now. It is critical you talk to your bank. Talk to your financial institution about this situation. You are not the only person going through this. It is important that you do this, because this is the one thing that people will worry about, and it will start to consume them. And really what you need to be focusing on is your family and your loved ones right now. Talk to your bank. There are a lot of people going through it. Devise up a plan with them to support you through at this point in time. We know this is not going to last forever. We will get through this and we will recover. But if you allow that to consume you, then the recovery rate is going to be slower for you, because it's going to wind you down and it'll be a difficult journey. So please engage your resources, seek professional help, and also get to talk to someone about your finances. Just some more resources while we're on to that. The website has some excellent resources for coping. That's the psychologytools.com, and it actually has some really good advice for handouts if you are someone who is a team leader, a teacher, or you're in managing a situation where you really need to provide education. Please go to that website. It also has information on supporting children and young people. Children are very scared. They're looking towards adults for support, for safety. So we need to be able to explain to them what's going on with the best information that we can at this point in time. And there is also some information there about acceptance and commitment therapy. And that is really the place we need to be at this moment. It is difficult to accept what we don't want to accept. And we are called at this point now for what we call radical acceptance. I absolutely need to accept that this is my reality right now, as much as I don't want to. If I can start from this place of accepting where I am, accepting how the changes have impacted my life, then I can commit to what is going to serve me and how I can get through this in a positive way. And in doing that, support others through this. Finally, this is Ashcliffe Psychology. My name's Kerryn, and thank you for joining us. I hope this has been of some benefit to you. Please feel free, if you want to drop us a line or anything, to go to our website, or you can email us at admin at ashcliffe.com.au. Some final words from you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Kerryn. Look, thanks very much for joining us in this short webinar. We decided to make something short and something fairly concise because we would like to be able to help people to cope at a time like this. And we do have, please, that website is absolutely excellent. The previous one that was on the previous slide, you can distribute this, or you're very welcome to give the link that you've got for this webinar to other people who might be interested, because we feel at this time people have got to help each other, and that's what we'd like to do. Thanks for joining us, everyone.